Hello, fellow travelers. This is Veronica from Human Design Journey, and we're gonna look at the weekly transit. The sun just changed gates, so we're finally out of the emotional gates activations during the past weeks. Basically, we went through all the gates of the emotional center, starting with the 41st, 19th, 49, 30, 55, 37, 22, 36, and we're now in the 25th gate. So we traveled all around the emotional center for the past weeks, and now we're in the 25th gate. We're still in the quarter of initiation, purpose fulfilled through mind. And today we entered into one of the love gates, part of the vessel of love, and responsible for the blood in the body. So it's innocence, the gate of spirit of the self. And today's in the first line, selflessness, motiveless action, a tendency to publicize one's selfishness, the insecurity of the self manifested in times of challenge. So for the for today, it's almost over. The first line. Tomorrow it will change. Yeah. So Mars just changed line to 12 on line 6. Okay, so we have here the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. So here we're talking about, it's part of the centering circuit. Bam, bam, bam. Let me put an annotation so you see it better. So this channel is part of the minor centering circuit, which basically means that we're talking here about making everything more individual. It's about empowerment. It's about inspiring others to do their own thing by the fact that you're doing your own thing. Just by being yourself, you empower others to be themselves too. So this is about finding one's own center through exploration of the self and initiation into new ways. So initiation is indeed about the nature of the individual circuit in a way, but also it's about competitiveness. It's connected to the gate of shock in the heart center. So we have a defined ego. The ego, it's a very interesting connection actually, because the ego is it's the heart. It's connected to the feeling of worth. So it is about the worth of the self. So it is about the I in the ego. The I have. And the G center, it's about the self, about the identity. It's about the higher self, which is in the second gate, the gate of the driver, of the magnetic monopole. So we have here two kinds of eyes. The ego eye, which is actually having a self-worth, and of course everybody has self-worth, but the people with defined ego have the feeling for self-worth and for the worth of things in general, how much they cost, while the open ego folks need to become wise about their worth and realize that actually only the fact that they are here on this planet makes them worthy, makes them valuable. And they don't need to prove anything. They don't need to improve themselves. So it's about the price of the I-ness, or the price of the self-worth. And it's a very different expression, of course, than the self in the G center, which is maybe we can even call it, because it's about innocence. It's a little bit, the feeling at least is, plus it's also not a motor. The ego is a motor, so there is a lot of energy. And here the energy empowers actually the innocence. And it empowers it in the fire of competition. It is simply the nature of this channel to be competitive. It's the spirit of competitiveness that moves us to win, to be first. And humans would be nowhere near as successful as we are without this competitiveness that moves us. So this centering channel is projector channel, so you have to be invited to initiation. And the whole magic of what individuality is all about is that we're invited to respond to life, to be ourselves, to not interfere. Basically, if you touch the heart of any individual and ask them what they really care about philosophically, they will tell you that it's about non-interference, so they can be themselves. These are Raoul Hu's words describing the centering circuit group, minor circuit group. So the behavior that emerges when you're innocent is just perfect. And part of the initiation is being yourself. Then your behavior will be perfect. We're talking about the vessel of love here, and the vessel of love pours itself out into the behavior in the world. So the art of initiation is to be yourself. Anybody who is around living out their definition, type, and authorities being themselves. And on the mystical level, this channel is also part of the mystical circuit. So it's the shaman, the priestess codes, because it's about initiating others into finding themselves, actually. So this channel is basically defining the G and the ego. So people with open ego, and those are 70% of the people, will be affected by that. So because we have Uranus in the 51st gate, and it's gonna stay oh, excuse me, Jupiter is in the 51st gate, and it's gonna stay the whole time while the 25th gate is here. So this channel for the whole week will be defined. So 70% of the people will be very willful. They will give promises and take risks, and maybe even go further and shock themselves or others. And there'll be a lot of competitiveness in the air, people trying to compete with each other and trying to improve, to prove. So this can be quite a busy ride. People putting their willfully doing things, and over promising and overusing their willpower. So there can be even strain on the health, on the heart health, and the stomach health, and all the organs which are here in the heart center. So it's about the material world, the heart center. So there will be a lot of things going on the material plane, talking about money, about egoism, about having things, about even dealing with things. And basically it's going to be a very willful week. And the people with the open G will feel more prone to describe themselves, to have a stable identity, trying to identify themselves, trying to identify where to go, what to do, with whom to be, who to love. Is this the right love? So there'll be a lot of confusion here, trying to prove your love, trying to be the first in your love, or trying to be the best identity, very fixed, trying to do that. And as we saw here, selflessness, a tendency to publicize one's selflessness. So a lot of people will be showing off this week, especially today, actually, because tomorrow we get into the second line, which is the existentialist. So it is devotion and dedication to the now, the perfection of the intellect through concentration and focus on what is rather than what could be or has been. The innocence of the self and its protection can only be maintained in the now. So tomorrow will be about devotion and dedication to the now, to the current moment, and the innocence of that eventually. And if you're in the not self, there'll be competing to perfect the intellect through concentration and focus on what is rather than what could be, and competing on what is, and over promising about that it will stay, for instance, the same. Then the next day we go to the third line, which is the recognition that innocent action does not in itself guarantee success. On one hand, the power of the ego to withstand failure and still maintain its nature, the power of the spirit to withstand failure and shock, and the other side, the potential loss of innocence through misfortune that in the extreme can manifest from crime to suicide. The potential loss of spirit through failure or shock. So the shock, jumping in the fire of the shock, and landing on your feet of innocence. That would be the best that could happen. Unless you take a not self decisions, which can only stay in the shock phase without really cleaning itself in the flames of the fire, so to speak, so to say. Then we have the fourth line, which is already defined by Mercury. So this is what we're gonna be hearing people saying and talking about. Survival. The nature of true innocence can be maintained regardless of circumstances. The beauty of the rose in the garbage dump. The highest principles even amongst the greatest decadence. The spiritual warrior, the innocence maintained regardless of circumstances. So the nature of innocence is in the air, and being true to yourself, and that's what people will be communicating about their highest principles. And no matter how everything is collapsing around or being decadent, and so a lot of people will be trying to prove themselves and to compete in their innocence. Surviving in the dump as a beauty, as being innocent. Then the day after we get into the fifth line, it's on Wednesday till Thursday. The hypochondria and the need to be healed by others, the weakness of the spirit which requires healing from others. And this is going to be probably in a way like looking for putting the fault and the blame on others so that they feel guilty and provide healing, for instance. That's one way of it can come out. Another way could be that hypochondria and feeling sick can be exaggerated, and being hypochondriac about how sick our society is and how somebody else has to do something in order to heal the society, the government's fault, this fault, politicians' fault, whatever fault, but not looking at your own plate and how you can actually put the healing to be your first priority when innocence is sapped of its vitality. Healing is the first priority. Then the last step will be the sixth line, ignorance, false innocence betrayed by actions, the least mild of a negative position where inappropriate action is censored, the loss of innocence through inappropriate action, and the other side, constant inappropriate and destabilizing actions whose very counterproductiveness strips away the facade of innocence, constant inappropriate action in times of challenges that can break the spirit. So in these challenging times, don't forget that we have the 51st gate, the gate of shock, by Uranus, the arousing. In second line, withdrawal, being too smart for one's own good and rejecting withdrawal in the vain belief that one can outsmart natural forces. The egoism to reject withdrawal and face possible defeat. So trying to shock others and to be competitive, and at the end facing actually possible defeat. Having the 12th gate, we'll look at it in a second, but we have also the 55th, 36th, the 60th gate. So all of this still gives us emotional charge. Um, so let's look at yeah, negative shock. So let's look now at the earth, which is the grounding and balance, and it's in the opposition of the 25th gate, the 46th gate pushing upward, the gate of determination of the self. Um, First line being discovered, dedication in obscurity that is unexpectedly discovered. Art for art's sake. Any creative endeavor that is self-fulfilling sooner or later is recognized. The potential for creative success through dedication. And the other side, the ability to judge the potential of those in obscurity, but often solely to benefit one's own success. And the determination to recognize the benefit from the success of others. So this innocent energy will be grounded in the determination of the self. And this is about the love of the body. So it is very much connected to the also to the blood which runs in the body. And here we have art for art's sake, or the ability to judge the potential, but to benefit one's own success. So this is something we will be seeing around, next to the publicizing your selflessness. There'll be also the judgment of the potential of those in obscurity, and recognizing the creative potential and the artistic approach of being discovered. That's the first line. So this is the energy today. Then we have tomorrow, the second line, prima donna, a difficult and demanding nature that succeeds despite its behavior because of the depth of its talents, determination to succeed that may often offend others, and unrealistic demands, an offensive nature of egocentric mediocrity, the determination to be treated as a success before it has been realized. That's tomorrow. The prima donna. So we will be seeing prima donnas and wanting people who are acting like they're already very successful, or that they succeeded in something before actually the success has been realized. So there'll be a lot of pumping up together with the second line of the 25th gate. Then we have the third line, projection, a practical approach to good fortune that maintains the same patterns and attitudes that brought success and does not get sidetracked by indulging in further expectations, the determination to stay with what brings success. And the other side, the determination to treat a projected success as reality, and a tendency through projection to treat the potential future as the present, leading to unjustified egoism and the loss of momentum and support. Then we have the fourth line, impact, the ability once recognized to move rapidly from a position of obscurity to influence, the good luck which comes from being determined that eventually, in the right place at the right time, leads to recognition. So it's the 46th gate, and it's part of the channel of discovery. Excuse me, it's yeah, so it's a design of success where others fail. So if you're persistent and if you stay with things you eventually responded to, of course you're going to be successful. Sooner or later, it will be recognized. Then, yeah, the projection in the third line, doing the same which brought you success, and the unjustified egoism and the loss of momentum and support when it's projected success and with a trial and error process. Then we have the fourth line, the opportunity, the ability once recognized to move rapidly from a position of obscurity to influence, the good luck which comes from being determined that eventually in the right place and the right time leads to recognition. Impact. So this will be on Wednesday. Okay. Then we get to the fifth line, which is pacing on Thursday. The maintenance of proper rhythm that in its instinctive practicality avoids radical divergence from successful patterns. And the other, determination to stay with the rhythm which brings success. And the other side, an irrational rejection of the very patterns that have proven successful. Determined to say no to the very rhythm that brings success. So being opposite, an irrational rejection or maintenance of the proper rhythm. So, and staying with things again and thus making it successful, being really determined. And then we will have the sixth line, integrity, the wisdom to secure one's identity. That will be on Friday through carefully consideration of the restrictive potential of commitments, the determination to say no to restrictive commitments. And the other side, deceiving oneself and others by overextending one's resources and eventually being in the position of having to break promises. A drive for success that will not say no and will end up breaking promises. And we have the defined ego at the same time, so it will be even more exaggerated. Here, wanting to make promises and eventually breaking the promises. We still have the notes in the 27th and 28th gate in the third line, so there'll be a lot of changes and mutations and discoveries maybe in the background frequency around us. So we have it in the third line, greed, the obsession with having much more than one needs. Here the psychological manifestation, the obsession and dependency on knowing what is hidden, the secret policeman, the power derived in having more than one needs, whether sexually, mentally, or materially. People will just want more and more and more. Mundane and holy, without redeeming value, greed, a lust that inevitably cripples and addicts, the lust for power to get more than one needs. To be honest, I know such a person. It really is with their son here, and it really is amazing. It's really those people are hoarding things and wanting to have more than needed. Then we have the other side, the lust for power to get more than one needs. And we have the 27th also in the second line by Venus, so values and relating. Ethics in the air. It's about the nourishment, the gate of caring. Second line, self-sufficiency. The obvious law that to give one must have. The mother, the great nourisher, the strength to nurture and the power to care. And the other side, the child depleting the resources of others, weakness that can sap the strength and power of others. So the values will be about giving and about nourishment, and we will see how stronger people which have more resources or organizations or governments or whatever will feel suddenly motherly and like great nourishers with the strength to nurture, or on the other side, the people getting that nurturing will be depleting the resources. And it's a weakness, so the weak can be pulling down the strong with them. Then the other side of the notes, so the background frequency and the setting, the stage on which everything is happening, is also in the gate of the game player, preponderance of the great. Adventurism is the third line, unfounded risk taking. On one side, a basic conservatism that even in adventurous acts is necessarily prudent, an intuitive caution in risk-taking in times of struggle, not wanting to take the risk on one side, and which actually can jeopardize you sometimes. Or the risk can be the only solution, no pain, no gain, sometimes. And on the other hand, here we have a perverse manifestation of Jupiter's expansiveness where risk-taking is rationalized and then failure is absolutely ensured. It's an intuitive rationalizing of risk-taking in times of struggle. So we have both things here. On one side being overcautious, and on the other side being overly zealous and overly stubborn and getting unfounded risks. Just being a game player. So this definitely brought some. The third line is the material line. It's about the material plane, and actually, it's about finding the way in the chaos. And it's very interesting because if you look at what happened the past week with all those crypto banks collapsing and other banks and financial markets, so it is kind of expected in this game player greed state in the third line really is playing out. We can really see it playing out in the scenery of what's going on. But guys, you don't have to live that. If you stick to your strategy and authority, you will stay centered. Not trying to compete for things that can be quite shocking. Then we have Moon in the 55th gate, abundance, the gate of spirit, fourth line, assimilation, the establishment of a framework that balances principles with energy and leads inevitably to expansion and prosperity on one side, and the boundless energy that knows no restraint, boundless energy that ignores awareness at the risk of the spirit. So this is the driving force, what we're focusing on thinking. This will change though in a few hours. So let's not pay so much attention to it. It's a very fast change. Every 8 hours, 9 hours changes the moon. We already looked at Mercury and communicating this survival, talking about survival, money, nourishment, taking care of things. And as we said also here, we saw in the 46 gate in the next days awaiting us, indeed, about survival, about resources, and yeah. Then self-sufficiency, as we said, as moral values being very important. Then the 12th on the 6th line in Mars, so that's the immature energy, which is very dynamical, very energetic, and can be surprising. In the 6th line, it's metamorphosis, faith in and energy applied towards change and the emergence from standstill. On one side, we have the creative transcendence that, when connected to the harmonic 22 gate, which is not happening right now through the channel of openness, leads to successful mutation and the emergence of new social forms, the capacity to mutate and express new social forms. And the other side, a retrograde metamorphosis that has evolved a perfected adaptation to standstill, the perfected adaptation to caution that can accept social limitations. So standstill, it's about either taking the step or not, being open or not. It is the gate of caution. It is a stop colon. So together with the 56th and the 33rd gate. So standing still and waiting, because for clarity, it's part of the channel of openness. So it's the quality of restraint and the importance of meditation and inaction in confronting temptation. So if you're not in the mood, you should not be expressing yourself, talking and being open to others. And if you are in the mood, then do talk to others, be open socially. It can be quite social and quite unsocial at the same time, the standstill. Yeah, design of a social being. And on the other hand, we have Saturn in the 55th gate, so limitations and discipline and restrictions. It's in the second line, distrust of the abundance in the gate of spirit, the 55th gate. So the gift of being able to penetrate to the center that may demonstrate effectively through its relating talents that its trustfulness is genuine. Emotional stability and the strength of the spirit is dependent on being trusted by others. And the other side, the direct challenge to the slanderers who will always have the advantage of quoting the bard. Methinks he doth protest too much. Only continued example can overcome distrust, the emotional drive to insist on trustworthiness that does not guarantee its acceptance by others or benefits the spirit. So we have here the natural, the hermit, and the line is distrust. Abundance hampered by slander or gossip. And when we connect all of this with what we already looked at, things become quite nasty for the not self expression of this energy. 2-4, Uranus, the unusualness, chaos, and innovation is in the gate of the high self. Fourth line, secretiveness. All of that's going to be secret. Our direction, more than modesty, the ability to preserve harmony through discretion. On one hand, the higher goal transcends personal claim. The team player acknowledged as the leader, but never the captain, where higher knowing does not have to be expressed to be recognized. And on the other side, we have loose lips sink ships. The unquenchable fire of the ego engenders enmity, the inability to keep silent when the opportunity arises for expression. And loose lips can sink ships. So be aware when people are spilling secrets out, or the opposite, being too open about things. Then we have the 36th gate in line 3 till year 2025. So every time I'm mentioning it, of course, transition, the point at which decline has exhausted its power. It's nothing we can really see because it's diluted by the Neptune, the king of the seas. So the ability to establish a new order out of the ashes of the old, and the point at which decline has exhausted its power. The emotional depth to endure crisis and embrace change. And the other side, the embrace of the change, but with feelings that will not let go of the past. The tendency in renewal to try to assimilate the remains of the old order into the new, with the risk that it may rise against the new order once it has regained its strengths. I'm not gonna interpret that. I Ching is not here to be really interpreted because it's something to be grasped on a deeper level than only by your mind. Then we have the Pluto transit with truth, transformation, and psychology in the 60th gate, limitation, the gate of acceptance, fourth line, resourcefulness, the reason and intelligent maximization of potential within limitations. the maximization of potential within limitation, able to find ways around things. But the first step, of course, is to accept that the limitations, and then find a way around them, maybe. And the other side, a tendency in times of limitation to seek the inner meaning of the restriction rather than using its gifts to find a harmonic application within the limitation. So staying stuck in the limitation and just accepting that you need to withdraw and not really to transcend. The energy to know rather than accept limitation at the expense of possible mutation leading to, and this can be actually leading to depression when nothing changes with this potential. So there is a lot of possibility for mutation, for change in a pulse. Let's not forget that's the part of the format channel of mutation, and everything here happens in a pulse. So one moment there is nothing, and then the next moment there can be huge discoveries, huge mutation, change. And there can be quite a melancholy, even depression, when change is not happening, or the unwanted change is happening. So this is basically what is going on. And it's not something to be worried about, because, hey, we have our strategy and authority, so we can stay centered. And we will be moving along the resistant path, the point of least resistance. So for sure there can be things that we might learn and that can be tough, or there might be nothing for us here in this week. It all depends on your strategy and authority, fellow travelers. This was Veronica with from Human Design Journey. It was my pleasure to share the weekly transit with you. Like and subscribe if you want to be in track with what's happening on the backstage, what's the frequency of the program, which is conditioning us. And I'll be glad to give you more. Visit humandesignjourney.com or my Facebook page, Human Design Journey, or subscribe to my Instagram, which is again Human Design Journey, and you will stay connected to me. This is Veronica from Human Design Journey, and I'm saying bye for now.